Who can resist? Before going to sleep, watching an episode of stress-relieving, sleep-aiding wilderness building? It's a blessing for those suffering from late-night insomnia. After watching, you're guaranteed to drift off into a beautiful sleep. Quickly grab your phone with around 70% battery and find the most comfortable position to lie down. Let's start today's bedtime little story together. When outside in Ionia, the temperature drops to minus 20 degrees. Drew appears alone in this wild land, although we don't know why. The urgent task is to build a shelter to keep warm. To reduce the time spent building the shelter, he plans to make good use of the earthen slope in front of him. After clearing all the indicated branches on it, he can start digging into the slope. Fortunately, the dry soil isn't frozen, so digging isn't too laborious. The only obstacle is the tree roots embedded in the soil, but in the end, he successfully finishes digging the foundation. After completing this, the next step is to gather building materials. Winter forests are rich in dead wood, so Drew doesn't have to worry about collecting logs. After cutting them to suitable lengths, they can be carried back to the camp. Once done, Drew digs holes in the ground and inserts the logs upright. You can see he cuts one end of each log at an angle so that the roof structure will fit well later. After securing the holes, he continues adding the main logs. These logs are thicker than his thighs, so Drew has to sit down and rest for a bit. Then he continues installing the wall support posts. He also uses sticks to ensure the angled pieces are stable before firmly compacting the foundation. Next, what he needs to do is to flatten one side of the logs, but due to the lack of electricity, he can only smooth them bit by bit with an axe. Fortunately, the final product fits perfectly with the angled pillars. Then Drew does the same to set up the other half of the doorway. By now, the small house is already taking shape, so he becomes even more motivated. He continues shaping the barked logs, placing one end on the earthen slope and the other end in the middle of the doorway. Being meticulous, he shakes them to test their stability. From his body language, it's clear that he is very satisfied with it. But one can't be happy too soon. A sudden shake of his legs almost made him lose a tooth. It seems that in the following work, he has to be extra careful. Soon, the bloodstains become heavier again. To speed up the shelter building angle, he doesn't debark the remaining roof logs. He just carves grooves to ensure a secure connection between the beams. After installing the support pillars for the cabin, the next step is building the walls. He starts by stacking logs at the bottom of the foundation pit and continues stacking upward in the same manner. This way, the wall structure is gradually formed. For parts that don't fit perfectly, Drew uses sticks as references, saws off the excess logs, and places them back to fit perfectly. All the logs Drew chooses are thicker than his thighs, although stacking upward takes considerable effort. He continues diligently, but the walls he built are very solid and can withstand the severe cold outside. Finally, after 2.5 hours, he completes the placement of the last log in the wall. He then collects many long, thin sticks, intending to use them as roof shingles. But before setting them, he first leaves an opening for smoke to allow the fireplace to vent. Then, using nails, he secures the roof in place. The final piece of the roof puzzle is the waterproof layer that shields from wind and rain. It's laid on top of the roof and then covered with soil to prevent it from being blown away by strong winds. Once Drew finishes laying the roof, the interior is no longer exposed to the cold wind. Finally, he uses some shorter logs to seal off the front wall. The front wall must block most of the wind and snow, so there can't be large gaps between the logs. For logs that don't fit perfectly, he trims the excess and hammers them tightly into place. After finishing, he brings a basin of snow to fill in the gaps between the logs. But after many attempts, the snow keeps falling out naturally, so he collects a bag of straw and stuffs it into the gaps in the walls to prevent cold wind from entering the shelter. Next, Drew uses the remaining logs to lay a solid wooden floor inside. This way, even if snow is tracked in and melts in the warm interior, the floor won't become muddy. After finishing this task, Drew plans to first make the main door of the shelter. For the door panels, he must use a plane to smooth them perfectly. This ensures the door is both functional and aesthetically pleasing. If the panels are slightly off in size, he can trim them a little with an axe, so the door fits snugly in the frame. Finally, he uses lotus leaves to connect the panels. At this point, the exterior of the shelter is essentially complete. Now he can finally return to the warm interior. He opens the previously reserved smoke vent, and once the chimney pipe is installed properly, Drew quickly adds some dry firewood. In cold winter, having enough dry wood means having enough sense of security. Now he can finally light a warm fire. In the small space, it won't take long for the interior to warm up quickly. Seeing that it's still early, Drew enters again and nails some logs to the walls to serve as a bed frame. Then he places logs on top to act as the bedboard. Finally, he lays a soft yoga mat to create a comfortable single bed. Now Drew can finally rest comfortably inside the warm cabin.